Hands are an essential part of body language and can express a lot without us even realising it. So it's amazing how much communication we do with our hands in our normal day-to-day interactions. Hands can be very utilitarian, with a lot of the actions a character's hands performing, they serve some practical purpose, whether it's picking something up or using a tool of some kind. At the same time though, hands can be very expressive and communicative. Sometimes a character can be so expressive with their hands that their hands become the main focal point of a pose. For example, shaking a fist, pointing, waving, clicking fingers, you name it, all these different things. That hand becomes a really key part of a pose. Well posed hands just add more life and appeal to a character, while badly posed hands can be distracting or just reduce the overall effectiveness and expressiveness of the character. So this is why it's important that we focus some energy on them, which includes learning how to draw them effectively and then learning how to pose them. So when drawing a character's hands, it can help to think through these questions, right? What are the hands saying? Do they complement the rest of the pose, or do they look awkward and out of place? Remember body language here. Hands will give some clues as to what's going on in a character's head. So let's look at some of the ways we can use hands in our posing. Open hands. Again, these suggest honesty. You can even point with an open hand, or you can say, I don't know. So yeah, open hands suggest honesty and openness. Forceful hands, such as a clenched fist or pointing, or kung fu hands. So forceful hands can be quite utilitarian, but at the same time they can also help express an emotion of anger or tension. Flourishes. So flourishes can be used to accent a point in a conversation. Utilitarian hands, so basically holding something or using something. It's less about communication, that hand position. It's more about utilising the hand to do something. Thoughtful hands. So hands can suggest when a character's thinking. Often they might interact with the character's face at the same time, maybe stroking their chin or touching their face in some way. So yeah, don't forget how powerful that can be. The hands interacting with another part of the body. But yeah, thinking hands, showing some thought process going on in the head. Even hidden hands is worth thinking about. So they might be relaxed in pockets, or they might be behind the back, which could suggest they're hiding something. Or you can have folded arms and so the hands aren't visible. And all these suggest different things, but generally hidden hands can be concealment or, hiding something. Or the character just might have cold hands, right? Of course, hands can also communicate. So instead of speech, we can communicate with our hands. Whether that's through simple symbolic hand gestures, like a peace sign or a thumbs up. Or, sign language. If a character's deaf, maybe they're using sign language. Or even like divers make use of sign language, use their hands to communicate underwater. And so yeah, hands can be used to communicate where speech is not needed or speech isn't possible. Remember also, some hand gestures are very culturally specific. So not every person from every culture will understand the same gestures with hands, okay? So just bear this in mind when designing for a particular audience. Especially if an innocent hand gesture in like one part of the world means something very offensive in another. It's just something worth bearing in mind. So being aware of how people use their hands in real life is a must in order to bring that into our characters. And again, we can exaggerate that. We can go a bit over the top. The one thing I would say is be careful about going too over the top with hands. If the hands are always constantly doing stuff, it can get a little bit distracting, especially in animation. So drawing hands could be a tutorial all on its own, right? So they can be really difficult. And the reason they're difficult is because they're quite complicated. We've got 5 digits and they articulate in 3-4 places, and the hands can form so many different shapes. And so yeah, they're difficult to draw. Even stylized hands can be tricky to pull off effectively while maintaining the appeal, right? So I recommend diving deeper into hand anatomy and really practicing them until you become comfortable with them, making sure you know how they're constructed. I mean, most people will have two hands at their disposal, right? So study your own hands, get to know them and understand how they work. Or use reference photos or other people's hands if you can borrow them. But yeah, try to get comfortable drawing hands first, right? But in the meantime, here's a simple guide on how I approach drawing them for characters.